Hello everyone, and welcome once again to the Heir's Lair. I'm your host, Jonathan Taylor. In this video I'm continuing what I did in my previous one, link to that right over there, and answering a few more questions from Eden Solera's Twitter profile, or at least the questions that showed up on their profile, over the last month. I've kept calling Eden Solera her over the in other occasions where I've answered questions from from the Twitter profile, but I'm not really sure if that's what they go by. So for the sake of not stepping on any toes, I'm gonna go by them from now on. Anyway, let's get into the actual meat of the video with the second batch of questions. Is history taught to all children as a part of their schooling, or is it only taught at certain schools / to specific groups, just the nobility, just religious figures, etc.? Well, it's kind of a tier system, really. Like every school that does teach history teaches some basics, but when it comes to more advanced stuff or more specific stuff, then you have to go to either go to specialized schools or teach yourself whatever it is you want to find out. Also, there are various disciplines that require you to learn some specific part of history, and in that case, the schools that prepare you for that specific discipline will teach you that specific part of history. Next question, are there any secret / hidden histories in your world? If so, how well hidden are they? Do people know that the secrets exist, or are they unknown to most, if not all people? Well, the idea of secret or hidden histories is it's actually kind of an ambiguous one, because obviously a whole bunch of historical events have differing interpretations. But in general, most of these interpretations are quite quickly proven to be just that, interpretations, flights of fancy, things no one would really take serious. The ones that have just enough ambiguity around them to where they could be plausible are indeed a little bit more interesting, but they are also somewhat more rare. Only historians, and often only a specific kind of historian, is aware of those. The general people, well, let's be honest, the general people don't really care, because it doesn't really change their quality of life in any way. Moving along, are there any days on which people in your world celebrate and or remember certain historical events? Yes. If so, do all people participate in those celebrations / memorials, or are they restricted to certain groups? Well, certain such remembrance or historical celebrations are public holidays, and sometimes these public holidays will have some kind of public festivity, but it's not really required to. You're not gonna be shooed away because you're too poor or something like that. But also you don't have to show up. If you have something else you want to do on that day, go ahead and do just that. Next question, are there any lost cities or civilization in your world's histories? A few. If so, are there any artifacts / ruins left over from those places, or are they completely gone, aside from stories? Well, they aren't completely gone. There are still ruins. There are still writings. Some of them can even be deciphered, which is, very pleasant. Where in your world did civilization begin? That is a very contentious question, because everyone has their own answer. The general consensus, however, is that they all pretty much started around the same time, or within a certain range. Though there are certain countries or certain provinces that can place a more specific date, as in that is a time when people first arrived there, for instance. Continuation of that question. How long ago was that before the time when the story starts? Well, I'll say the earliest civilizations, the earliest settlements we would recognize as civilizations, spawned around 5,000 years ago, or within a 500-year interval, 5,000 years in the story's past. Which one exactly was oldest is kind of hard to tell. That's why it's a point of contention. We don't really have there aren't really any records that are accurate enough to where you could guess that. Next question: are there any legends in your world that are viewed as true history? Yes, there are. Or any true historical events that are treated as legends. There is somewhat of a gray area when it comes to certain figures around which religious worship has developed. But aside from that, it's pretty. It's still for the most part clear cut. Or even if the history isn't clear, it hasn't really. The events that a history isn't clear about haven't really translated into legend. Or what the parts of history that are ambiguous enough to become legends mostly become enshrined through mythology and worship and religion, that kind of stuff. Next question: how was your world created? This is a loaded one. Are there different competing theories, or one view that is accepted as the truth? Well, religious fundamentalists exist, and they all say that the world was created in accordance to what their faith is. However, the general scientific consensus is that the world was, or rather the planet, was created in the typical ways planets get created. How much the people within that setting know the process of planet creation is somewhat ambiguous for a for a variety of reasons. I don't think astronomy is really well enough developed to the point where they are like, oh, this is how planets are made. Next question: are there any long-standing conflicts throughout history in your world? There have been a few. Many of them, funnily enough, are actually civil wars or conflicts between various factions within countries that flare up again and again for a wide variety of reasons. Are those conflicts still going on at the time the story begins? For the most part, actually not. It's a strangely peaceful interval within history at the time of the narrative. Aside from maybe a few wars but on a completely different continent. And yes, a few because you know how wars go. How long have people, or whatever the main species is, existed in your world? Did they just appear at some point, either by magic or otherwise, or did they evolve from an earlier species? Well, I mentioned before that fundamentalism exists, so of course those guys would think that they're gods or divine figures created the world and then placed them there. In truth, as far as archaeological record is capable of figuring out, humans, or people, have evolved in the world, but their actual place of origin is still somewhat of a mystery, because fossils show up everywhere at a whole bunch of places and are also have varying ages. So again, it's still kind of a mystery for the most part, or at least it is right now. And yeah, that was it. That was the last question of this batch. I thank you for your attention. Be sure to check in next week when I'll be finishing up these the questions, the April questions that even Solera posted on their Twitter. And again, thank you for your attention, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, then please leave a like and maybe even share this video wherever you think others will like it as well. If there is anything you would like to add to whatever it is I just said, or any part of what I just said, then the comment section awaits your input. And if you want to see when my next video gets released, well then please subscribe. And ideally also ring the bell or do whatever else YouTube will allows of you in order to keep you notified. My own debut novel, Heir to the Empire, The Next Generation, is available at a whole bunch of major book retailers under a master link in the description down below, right past my social media, which I also suggest you check out. Until next time, I am Jonathan Taylor, and this has been The Heir's Lair.